Hey, welcome to D Time, Season 1, Episode 19, Dating IRL. for the for those that are a little bit older, don't know what that is that means in real life, short code for that. So dating in real life, and again, this topic is a lot of like a previous episode, dating the right way. But I wanted to kind of just do a deeper dive into kind of some great practicals and insights from on dating from a couple who's currently dating, Terry Cobb and Michaela Powell. And so they're currently dating, and I know they have a lot of great stories to share and insights to share about the topic. Because dating now is totally different than dating when my wife and I were dating over 11 years ago. And I know that in itself can be challenging. The way people date or go about dating, dating now is very different than in the past. So how do you reconcile that? How do you change or look into you know doing things the right way in today's climate? And so I'm excited to sit down with them and hear what they have to say. And for those that are listening, share your tips, share your different relationship hacks, if you will, things that have helped you in your dating relationship, and specifically dating in today's climate where there's so much pressure, or and maybe even in a weird way, dating has become more detached. You have the dating apps, and you have the Tinder and all those things where people are trying to find the right match and eliminating a lot of kind of like the realness of dating. So how do you deal with that? And so I'm excited to hear from Terry and Michaela, and kind of pick their brains and kind of get a sense of what's going on in dating. And so please stick around for part two. And as always, if you have any thoughts or comments on this topic or any other topic, feel free drop a comment in the episode description. You can follow the podcast at D Time Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, you can email us at dtimepodcast@gmail.com. Stick around for part two, Dating IRL. Peace. Hey, welcome back to D Time, Season 1, Episode 19. I'm here with Terry and Michaela. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to come and chat with me. How's it going?
It's going good.
It's going great, going great.
Awesome. So the episode is called Dating in Real Life. And I know, in part one, I talked about, my wife and I, Margarita, we started dating over 13 years ago, and things may or may not have changed since then, dating as Christians. And so I thought it'd be cool to get you guys in and chat with you guys about dating. So, but before we kind of dive in, kind of starting with you, Terry, I want to know if you guys can take a couple minutes to introduce yourself.
Oh yeah. Well, my name is Terry Cobb. I'm originally from California. I'm from Los Angeles. Grew up in the Compton and Carson type area. I've been out here in Seattle now, or Washington, on and off for almost 15 years. Moved out here for good when I was a freshman in high school, and just kind of been out here since then. Met Michaela when I was 18 years old, and started dating at I think 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of me.
Awesome. All right, how about you, Michaela?
Well, I am born in North Carolina, raised here in Washington, more south. But yeah, my whole life I've been in Washington. Grew up in the Tacoma area, and recently moved up to Seattle. But yeah, just like what Terry was saying, met him when I was 17, 18, somewhere around there. But we met in Federal Way working at the same job. But yeah, a little bit about me. Moved up to Seattle recently. Was reached out by some disciples and studied the Bible with them, and have been living my life up here in Seattle now for a good year.
Nice. Awesome. So, dating as Christians can be, a challenging thing that I talked about in the first part. There's no mention of dating in the Bible. So for you, maybe starting with you, Michaela, what would you say is the hardest thing about dating as Christians? What's the hardest thing about it?
Hardest thing, definitely relearning boundaries, I would have to say. Me and Terry, we came from dating in the world, and dating as a Christian is very different, just because there are boundaries that you do have to set with one another, just to kind of guard your own heart. And kind of like you're kind of learning how to date all over again when you come from that place of dating out in the world versus dating as a Christian.
Yeah, what about you,
Yeah,
Terry?
I kind of agree. I kind of agree with she said. Just the boundaries is probably the hardest thing for me as well. Just coming from a relationship where we were just very together at all times, like spending night at each other's houses. Just like cuddled up all the time, just very like affectionate with like our touch and our words. And then to turn around, and just try to like set the example for not only ourselves but for the people around us of how like Christians should date, with purity, pure heart, pure mind, pure words. And I can honestly say, like, the boundaries, as hard as it was, it's also made the difference of our relationship. Made the big difference. If things are better, it made our relationship better in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, since you guys have kind of been, dating now, as Christians and with the new boundaries and things like that, are there any things that's maybe surprised you going into dating are there any surprises, from starting from you, Terry?
It's just amazing, like how I wouldn't say it's much of a surprise, but it's more of amazing of just like when you date as Christians, you focus more on your relationship emotional wise, focus more on the heart rather than dating out in the world. Like it's easy to see a woman for how she dresses, how she acts, what her body type and things like that, her features. But dating as Christians is different. You see a woman for her surfing heart, her personality, like what makes her her, or him, I should say. But just like I would say that's probably the biggest thing that was a surprise to me is like even though me and Michaela dated for years before we even became Christians, it was like learning a whole new Michaela when we became Christians. So I think that was probably the most surprising, amazing part.
Yeah, I think one thing that really surprised me definitely was the dating, like the dating life, I guess. It's, you go on group dates and you're doing things with other Christians that are dating or may not be dating, and it's when you're dating in the world, it's like you're concentrating more on like, okay, well, what am I going to get out of this? But dating as a Christian, your focus is on that other person. You're not wrapped up in yourself. And I guess the purity of thinking, like, you don't imagine that, going on a date could be so pure. And when you go on an actual date as a Christian, it's completely pure. There's like completely pure motives, which was definitely starting out was a complete surprise for me.
That's awesome. So obviously, how long have you guys been, dating as Christians? How long has that been so far?
2 years, about on and off. I mean, we've had our struggles, but we've persevered. We're still standing today, but 2 years now.
Awesome. So kind of for you guys now, what advice would you share with others, that have helped you so far?
To be patient.
Mhm.
Dating as a Christian is something that is not something that you can just pick up and go. It's something that you have to really just be patient with and learn. It's kind of like learning math for the first time. Numbers can get stressful and frustrating, and it can kind of seem like people are trying to tell you what to do instead of how to do it.
Mhm.
And you just have to be patient and just really, look at the equation and, just really be patient. And once you get it, you're just like, wow, this is amazing.
Mm.
Mhm.
Awesome.
I would say focus on your relationship with God first. If anything, like your relationship with God should come first, in a relationship. So if you're considering dating someone, having a strong relationship with God, it's going to help you face any bump, anything that you two may have to go through. Um, but having a solid relationship with God, I would recommend making sure that's solidified before even going forward with a relationship with someone.
Definitely.
Now, you guys kind of both alluded to, maybe challenges or difficulties. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe currently dating right now? What advice would you give to them, to someone who's maybe struggling right now as a dating couple?
Mm. I would just say love conquers everything. There's times where you can get stressful. There's times where you can get frustrated. There's times where you guys have disagreements. Through all the hardships, love will conquer everything in prayer. Remember that you guys are a team. Pray through everything. Put God in every situation, and just show each other love with every word that you and every action that you do.
Awesome.
Yeah, my first question would be for someone who is struggling in their dating relationship, I would ask them, where is God in the middle of your relationship? Like, is he off to the side? Are you guys praying together? Are you sharing, your quality times with God, what you're getting from the Bible, what you're growing in? That it's like sharing that kind of encouragement with one another definitely is key, and really just keeping God in between you and the person that you're dating. It helps you remain humble and just always considering that other person.
Awesome. Now, again, thinking back to my time, one of the things that pieces of advice that someone shared with, my wife and I then when we were dating was to set those boundaries earlier, kind of like you guys mentioned. Now, for you guys, what's the best piece of advice about dating that someone has shared with you guys?
Me first. Best piece of advice. I would say the 1 Corinthians 13 scripture definitely has come up so many times.
True.
And just like what Terry was mentioning earlier, just about, love, it's everything. And so constantly thinking about in all situations and circumstances, like, how loving are you being? And to go through those things, like love is patient, love is kind, it's not envious, it's not boastful, and really go through those things and think about that in your relationship, on if you're applying that kind of love that God defines as what love is in your relationship.
Awesome.
Yeah,
How about you?
I think for me, it's to be unified. Um, when you're not unified, things can easily just crash and burn. To stay unified and just communicate through everything, every detail, every way, and just stay open with one another about what's going on around you. And so if you have any of those kind of issues in life where you're not being unified or you're not communicating with your other things just won't go right. It's just easy for evil to creep in and get a foothold.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Now, one of the things I always ask people that I sit down with, and it doesn't have to necessarily do with with dating, But for you personally, you guys personally, what's the best piece of advice that someone has shared with you? Just, maybe just about life in general. Starting with you, Terry.
The best piece of advice that somebody shared with me in general. Oh, there's so much. I think the major thing is to be humble. You're not humble enough to even just listen to people's guidance, listen to the advice around you. It's easy to get prideful and selfish, and pride and selfishness will just lead you down a road where you're just alone and by yourself. And it's easy when you're by yourself for the devil to get a foothold of you. So I think the main thing is just to be humble, take advice, take guidance, and just really just listen to what people got to say to help you.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think the best, something I can think of is definitely about life is not meant for you to have to go through it alone. And so turning to the people who love you and turning to the people who care about you and want the best interests, for your life and, for your relationship with God, that's going to be the key, is to remain close, to remain unified, with everyone that is around you, who is supporting you, who is helping you grow, and trust in the fact that God has put these people in your life to help guide you through every single challenge and every single thing that you may have to go through.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Sure. Guys, well, thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. I think it's cool to see that, again, in part one, I talked about, my experiences, but it's cool to see that when you put God first and when you date in a godly way, that, the path is really laid out, and the answers and the confusion kind of goes out of the window because, the Bible and God is so clear about it. So thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. For those listening, maybe if you're dating or you want to date, you want to know how to do it right, do it the right way, definitely leave your comments. Follow the podcast on D-Time Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Terry, Michaela, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out and dropping knowledge. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having us.